In Unit 8, Section 3, we're looking at adding and subtracting unlike fractions. Again, we're going to start with things that should be familiar to you, then we're going to move on to variable expressions with fractions. So unlike fractions, meaning they don't have the same denominator. So the first one we have to do is find a common denominator. So for our first example, it says find the sum or difference. We have 8 over 9 plus negative 10 over 21. So right now they don't have a common denominator. So the first thing to do is find a common denominator. Common denominator of 9 and 21 is 63. If you need help figuring out what the least common denominator is, make sure you ask your teacher and they can walk you through it. So I'm going to rewrite 8 over 9 as something over 63. So 9 times 7 is 63. So I can do 8 times 7, which is 56. Then I need to add, and then I have a negative. I need to write 63 as the denominator for this one. 21 times 3 is 63. So I do 10 times 3, which is 30. Now that they have a common denominator of 63, I can actually add. So I'm doing 56 plus negative 30. So that's going to give me 26 over 63. Those don't have anything in common, so I can just box that, and I'm done there. Next up, we have negative 3/4 minus negative 5 over 18. Again, the first thing I need to do is find a common denominator. So my least common denominator for 4 and 18 is going to be 36. And now I can rewrite these with 36 as the denominator. 4 times 9 is 36, so I do 3 times 9 and I get 27. It's minus negative 5/18, so I'm going to go ahead and just switch that to addition. 18 times 2 is 36, 5 times 2 is 10. They have a common denominator now, so I can go ahead and add those together. Negative 27 plus 10 is negative 17 over 36. Those don't have anything in common, so I'm all done there. Looking at the next section, it says adding and subtracting unlike mixed numbers. So again, they don't have the same denominator, but now we're working with mixed numbers. So first thing I need to do is find the least common denominator. In this case, for 4 and 14, my least common denominator is 28. So I'm going to rewrite these with 28 as the denominator. 4 times 7 is 28. 3 times 7 is 21. Then I can switch this to plus negative 4, and I need something over 28. 14 times 2 is 28. 3 times 2 is 6. I'm going to go ahead and write these vertically now. I'm doing bigger one minus the smaller one. So 4 and 6, 28 is minus 1 and 21 over 28. Just like we did with integers, we want to do bigger minus smaller. Now I can't do 6 minus 21, so we talked about this a little bit in the section before, but I'm going to borrow. So that's going to become 3, and then I need to add 28 to the 6, so I'll get 34 over 28 minus 1 and 21 over 28. 34 minus 21 is 13 over 28. 3 minus 1 is 2, so we're all good there. Looking at the next one, we have 25 and 2 as our denominator, so I need the least common denominator, which in this case would be 50. So I need to rewrite these with 50 as the denominator. So 25 times 2 is 50, 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 25 is 50, 1 times 25 is 25. Now again, I have a negative plus a positive, so I need to do the bigger one minus the smaller one. So I'm going to do 6 and 6 over 50 minus 3 and 25 over 50. Just like the one before, I can't do 6 minus 25, so I need to borrow. That's going to become 5. I add 50 to the 6, and I'll get 56 over 50 minus 3 and 25 over 50. So now I can subtract 56 minus 25 is 31 over 50. 5 minus 3 is 2. I did the bigger one minus the smaller one. The bigger one was negative, so this should be a negative 2 and 31 over 50. And actually the one before should also be negative because that negative 4 was bigger than the 1. All right, moving down to the next section. It just says simplify here, simplifying an expression because we have variables involved now. So we're working with variable expressions. If you look, I do not have a common denominator. So just like with the review problems, my first step is to find the least common denominator. The least common denominator of 6 and 5 is 30. So I need to rewrite these with 30 as the denominator. 6 times 5 gives me 30, so I do 7x times 5, which is 35x. 5 times 6 is 30, so I do x times 6, which is 6x. Now that I have a common denominator, I can go ahead and put those together. So I'm doing negative 35x minus 6x, and that'll give me negative 41x over 30. And so just like I told you in the section before, as a reminder, I'm going to leave that fraction how it is. When I have a variable involved, I do not turn it into a mixed number. Just leave it an improper fraction. All right, looking at the next example, we have 4 over 8x plus 5 over 3x. My least common denominator is going to be 24x. Again, if you have any problems finding least common denominators, ask your teacher for help. So I'm going to rewrite these. 24x is the denominator. 8x times 3 is 24x, so I do 4 times 3, which is 12. 3x times 8 is 24x. 5 times 8 is 40. So I'll get 52 over 24x. Now again, I do not turn this into a mixed number, but if I can simplify it, I can simplify it. 52 and 24 can both be divided by 4. So my final answer will be 13 over 6x. So looking at the backside, it says the width of a rectangle is 1 3/4 feet. And then it says the rectangle is 2.5 feet longer than it is wide. What is the length of the rectangle? So my length is 2.5 feet longer than my width. So let's start with the width. The width is 1 3/4. And then since it's longer, that means I'm going to add 2 1/2. So I need my least common denominator, which in this case would be 4. So I have 1 3/4 is going to stay the same. I need to rewrite this as 2 2/4. And now I can add 3 plus 2 is 5/4. 1 plus 2 is 3. That's not simplified down because the 5 is greater than the 4. So that's going to knock me up to 4 and leave me with 1/4. So 4 1/4 feet would be the length of the rectangle. All right, I'm going to leave number 2 for you guys to try. And then also don't forget about your review problems on the bottom. You should not be taking the check-in until you've done the review problems and checked them over.